Way, Haribo. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Nandava Pranam.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare
Pranam.
Krishna
Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Everybody here? Yes. What do you want?
I received your voice message, but I can't hear anything, Maharaj.
What do you mean you can't hear anything?
You received.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
You can hear me?
Yes, Maharaj. You can.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, good. So we'll begin now. Om Jnanatimidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmilitanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're continuing our study of the Sri Isopanishad at the level of Bhakti-shastri. This evening we're going to look at Mantra 2 and Mantra 3. Right? And you remember Mantra 1, right? You all remember Mantra 1? Do you remember? I hope so.
Yes, Maharaj.
Isavashyamidam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagattena chaktena bhunjita magrada kashatadhanam. So everything animate and inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should accept therefore only those things which are necessary for himself, which are set aside as part of his quota. One should not accept other things knowing well to whom they belong. So you'll remember in the purport of Mantra 1, Prabhupada gave some examples about quotas, right? He gave the example about the lion. The lion has his quota. What is the quota for the lion? Yes, Yuvati Sachi. What's the quota for the lion? Yes, right. Meat. That's right. Meat is the quota for the lion. It's not the quota for human beings, but it's a quota for the lion. Right? And then he gave another example. What was the other example he gave? Who remembers? Yes? Anybody? Quota was that we should take
Maharaj, the cow gives milk, but...
Yes, Prabhu, thank you very much. That was the example. Very good. Yes, the cow. The cow, what's its quota?
It doesn't take its own milk, it gives to others.
And what does it eat?
Grass.
Right. Grass is the quota for the cow and it gives the milk. Very nice. So 2 examples were given there. Okay, so that was the examples which showed how people just... It's an example how people just take what is their quota. So here, Mantra 2 describes us the results. If you do like that, if you just take what's your quota, what is the result? Mantra 2 describes. We'll read mantra 2. Kurvaneva karmani jajivishek chatam samaha evam tvaena natetosti na karma lipyate nare. One may aspire to live for hundreds of years if he continuously goes on working in that way, for that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma. There is no alternative to this way for man. So this is a continuation from the first mantra. You have to work in that way. What way is it? What was the point which was made in the previous mantra? In what manner we should work? Can you give one word? Sanskrit word? What's the Sanskrit word? That we should work in that manner?
Maharaj, Isavasya.
Yes, right. Isavasya. And what's the translation? How does Prabhupada translate it? Well, the meaning of control.
It controls by God.
God in the center, right? God-centered. So if we work in that way, with the Lord in the center, then we will not be bound by the law of karma. So that's something very beneficial for us. All right? So let's go into see what Prabhupada says in the purport. It said, no one wants to die. Everyone wants to live. They want to live as long as he can drag, as long as he can drag on. And this tendency is visible not only individually, but also collectively in the community, society, and nation. There is hard struggle for life by all kinds of living entities, and the Vedas say that this is quite natural. The living being is eternal by nature, but due to his bondage in material existence, it has to change his body over and over. This process is called transmigration of the soul, or karma bandhana, bondage by one's work. The living entity has to work for his livelihood because that is the law of material nature. And if he does not act according to his prescribed duties, he transgresses the laws of nature and binds himself more and more to the cycle of birth and death in the many species, of life. So Prabhupada is warning us. We have to act. We have to do our duties. And if we don't follow the laws of nature mean accepting what is proper for us, being honest, and living according to the laws of God. If we follow these laws, if we don't follow the proper codes set for people, then we become caught up in the wheel of birth and death. Karma bandhana. Yagnata karmanan yatra lokoyam karma bandhana. In the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna uses this word karma bandhana. Tadartam karma kontiya mukta sangha samacharam. Lord Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita, work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, that work binds one to the material world. So we have to perform some kind of sacrifice for the pleasure of Lord Vishnu. Otherwise, It's all karma bandhana. Karma bandhana means we are put in the wheel of birth and death, going through the different species of life. Oh, then Prabhupada continues the purport, how other life forms are also subject to the cycle of birth and death. But when the living entity attains a human life, he gets a chance to get free from the chains of karma. Karma, akarma, and vikarma are very clearly described in Bhagavad Gita. So then Prabhupada discusses these three terms, explaining to us karma, meanings acts according to the Vedas. Acts according to the Vedas for sense gratification. Prabhupada said, action, he said, actions that are performed in terms of our prescribed duty, as mentioned in the scriptures, are called karma. Karma, we enjoy karma, but we also suffer karma according to how we work. When we perform our duty properly, then we get good karma, and when we don't perform properly, then we get bad karma. There's also vikarma. Vikarma is when we act against the scriptures. And then akarma is when you don't get any reaction. All right? Actions which free one from the cycle of birth and death are akarma. So devotee wants to work on that level, akarma. We want to get free of birth and death. We don't want to remain in the material world. So this Sri Isopanishad is describing to us, said we can live for hundreds of years. do you want to do that? Do you want to live for hundreds of years? That's not really the goal of life, of course. But some people like that. And material world, many people actually, they like to live. They want a long life. And they think that's the goal of life. They don't know. Trees also live a long time. But Prabhupada said, what is the value of a long life like a tree? He says, Mahaprabhu was in this world only for 48 years. And Shankaracharya was in this world only 32 years. But they made great contributions to the world. So Prabhupada says, better a moment of full consciousness than a lifetime like the tree. All right, we'll go ahead. The instructions of Sri Isopanishad are more elaborately explained in the Bhagavad Gita. So, actually, the same teachings are there. Bhagavad Gita, Sri Isopanishad. Sri Isopanishad is giving us a glimpse of devotional service. It's much clearer in the Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita is directly Lord Krishna's words. The Isopanishad, it's the stepping stones to devotional service. It's not that we can so easily understand Krishna from the Isopanishad. But with the help of a devotee, then it becomes easy. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, Krishna says that one cannot attain the stage of nice karma, which means the same as akarma, means getting free of birth and death. So you cannot come to that level without executing the prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedas. This literature can regulate the working energy in such a way that he can gradually realize the authority of the Supreme Being. And when he realizes the authority of Krishna, then he understands that he has attained, it is understood that he's attained the stage of positive knowledge. In this purified stage, the modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance cannot act, and he is able to work on the basis of nice karma. Such work does not bind one to the cycle of birth and death. So Prabhupada's explaining, if you can get free of the modes of nature, if you can come up to the transcendental level, no more influence of the modes of nature, then you can get, this is the level of nice karma, and you can get free of birth and death. So how to get to that level, nice karma, how to get free of the modes of nature? We do it simply by surrendering to Krishna. We want to come to the stage of surrendering to Krishna. So Prabhupada continues saying, no one has to do anything more than render devotional service to the Lord. If we just do devotional service, then the problem is solved. Of course, the problem is to get people to do devotional service. Prabhupada continues, he said, in the lower stages of life, one cannot immediately hope or adopt the activities of devotional service. The animals, for example, they cannot immediately take up devotional service. Nor can one completely stop fruitive work. Fruitive work means we desire to enjoy the results of our work. That's also not an easy thing to give up. Everyone works to enjoy the fruit, but devotional service means to give up the fruit. So to get people to come to that level of devotional service it's not so easy. We are conditioned souls. Prabhupada continues how we work for sense gratification. We have our own selfish interest. An ordinary person works for his own enjoyment. But this principle of sense enjoyment, when this principle of sense enjoyment is extended to include his society, nation, humanity in general, then it assumes various attractive names. Prabhupada is fond of naming all these things, and he talks about altruism, socialism, communism, nationalism, humanitarianism, and he calls these isms are attractive forms of karma bandhana. People are thinking they're doing some good when they do this kind of work, but Srila Prabhupada identifies this kind of work as simply bondage to the material world. You do some good for people materially, it's not going to help your spiritual life. You're not helping their spiritual life, and you're not helping your own spiritual life. You do some kind of things to help them materially, it's all bondage. So the Sri Isopanishad says that if one actually wants to live for any of the above isms, then he has to make them God-centered. And Prabhupada gives an example about God-centered. He says, there's no harm in being a family man if you're in God consciousness, if you have a God-centered home, a God-centered family life. And the same way, other things like altruism, socialism, communism, nationalism, humanitarianism, they can all be done provided you have that Isavasya spirit, that mode that God is in the center, that everything is His and it's for His pleasure. So that is required. So this is the message here in this mantra of Sri Isopanishad. Prabhupada continues, he says, Lord Krishna states that God-centered activities are so valuable that just a few of them can save a person from the greatest danger. Of course, the danger is that we're in the human form of life and we're going to lose it and we'll fall into the lower species. So that will be very unfortunate. We don't want that to happen. A foolish man foolish people, they don't see this happening. They're so attached to their sense gratification. They don't see how they're going to fall into the lower species of life. So the Isopanishad is in these first three mantras. The Isopanishad is encouraging us to come to this spirit of Isavashya. Isha meaning the Lord, and Avashya with the Lord in the center of all activities. In other words, everything is done for His pleasure. So, being so engaged, we may wish to live for many, many years. Otherwise, long life has no value. And then Prabhupada says, a tree can live long, but there's no point in living like trees. And then Prabhupada quotes some other examples which are given in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the, I think it's chapter number 3 or chapter number 2, where Sonaka Rishi is giving different examples. He's talking about, this is a long life like a tree, or breathing like bellows. So the bellows also produce air. So you may say, no, I'm breathing, but you're breathing and without God consciousness, then it's just like the bellows which produce air. Or another example, beget children like the hogs and the dogs. Well, the hogs and the dogs are very expert. They have big litters. When they produce offspring, they'll produce 6 or 8 offspring at a time. So you want to simply do like that? Well, that's the business of the hogs and the dogs. And you want to eat, may eat like camels. The camels, they eat thorns and taste their own blood, and they think they're enjoying. So this kind of ignorance, is that what you want? We're not encouraged in that way. Excuse me. Okay, so Almighty God, and a humble God-centered life is more valuable than a colossal hoax of a life dedicated to godless altruism or socialism. So altruism or socialism is simply concerned with the material bodies. They're not doing any spiritual benefit for anyone. So Prabhupada says it's just a hoax. People want to put on a show, they think they're doing good, but they're not doing any good for anyone. They're not doing any good for themselves or for other people, because whatever benefit they give them is very temporary, and it's going to be finished with the body. So Prabhupada continues, when altruism altruistic activities are executed in the spirit of Isopanishad, in other words, as Ishavasya, then they become a form of karma yoga. And such activities are recommended in the Bhagavad Gita. They guarantee people promotion from the danger of falling into the lower species. So even though such God-centered activities may not be completed, they're still good for the person because they will guarantee him a human form in his next birth. You're guaranteed because you've made some endeavor for Krishna consciousness. You made some endeavor to do devotional service. So Prabhupada says, in this way you can have another chance to improve our position in the path of liberation. How one can execute God-centered activities is elaborately explained in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Srila Rupa Goswami. So Prabhupada has given us this book also, and so it's recommended we read this, also part of the Bhakti-shastri course, the first section of the nectar of bhakti, of the nectar of devotion. So it's recommended to read that book. And Prabhupada said anybody who's interested in performing their activities in the spirit of Sri Isopanishad in this Ishavasya center, then they should read this book. They should read the Nectar of Devotion. So of course you're going to study that Nectar of Devotion, that part of the Bhakti-shastri course. Okay, are there any questions on Mantra 2? I don't think there's anything very difficult there. Anyone has any question before we go on to Mantra 3?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, can I ask you a question?
Are you in the class?
Yes, Gurudev. Srila Prabhupada said that we have some, sorry. So we have, sorry, I forgot my question.
Huh?
Sorry, I forgot my question. Prabhupada said we have positive activity. So
Yeah.
Guru Maharaj, maybe I can ask question about the previous lecture.
What?
Yes, you quoted the verse from Bhagavad Gita from 6th chapter, text number 41, that unsuccessful yogi is born in a family of righteous people or in aristocracy family. So what, and Prabhupada said that aristocracy means merchant family. So why this is not Kshatriya family for them, or as unsuccessful yogi?
Well, Bhagavad Gita just says they'll be born in a wealthy family. It may be Kshatriya, it may be Vaishya. They'll take birth in a wealthy family or an aristocratic family, so that they can again have the opportunity to continue their devotional service.
Yes, Guru Maharaj, thank you.
Okay, any other question from anybody else? Okay, then we'll go on to Mantra 3. Mantra number 3. Asurya namate loka andhena tamasavrita tamste pratyabhigajanti ekachatmahano jana. The killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. So, the interesting word here in this verse, it's mentioned, Atmaha, right? Atmaha, the killer of the soul. Atmahana, Atmahana, the killer of the soul. So people will question, how is it possible the soul can be killed? Is this not a contradiction? Because from the Bhagavad Gita, we have heard, Ajopi san avyayatma, that for the soul there is no birth and there is no death. But here it's saying Atmahana, the killer of the soul. So we want to understand this contradiction. Actually, there's no contradiction, but what is being said is that if somebody acts in an impious, irreligious manner, then he will enter into, he's like somebody killing the soul, because the nature of the soul is to be a servant of the Lord. The soul by nature, by its constitution, is a servant of the Lord. But those people who are demoniac, they will not like to do service for the Lord. They will like to kill the nature of the soul. And so these people are being described. If people are godless, then they will enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. So we know people often have to go to work in these kind of conditions, darkness. 6 months of winter, never see the sun for 6 months, and then 6 months of summer. So this is a continuation from Mantra 2. Mantra 2 described those people who live in God consciousness, who live in the Ishavasya spirit. And now Mantra 3 is describing those people who don't live in that Ishavasya spirit. They don't care about having God in the center. They want to get rid of God. So what happens to these people? They're described here as Atmahana, killers of the soul. And they enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. So Srila Prabhupada describes for us, human life is distinguished from animal life. You can see Prabhupada is giving us the very basic philosophy here, the distinction between human life and the animal life. So the animals, they're engaged in 4 activities: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. In Sanskrit, the words are Atyaha, Ahara, Nidra, Bhaya, Maichunadi. So animal life is based on these 4 activities. Human life is meant to be different. Human life is meant to have some responsibility added in there. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending are done, but they are minimized. materialistic people, they want to maximize these things. They want more sex, more sleep, more food, more drink. Like that, they think that is the success of life. But those people with more knowledge, they will want to control these things and regulate these activities and minimize them. So that should be understood. The animals, they're only thinking, where is food, where is sleep, where is sex? But human beings are not meant to just think about that. Human beings have a greater responsibility. So Prabhupada explains, those people who recognize that they have a responsibility, they are called suras, or godly persons. And those who are neglectful of these responsibilities, they're called asuras, or demons. Even though they may have a nice, what seems like a nice birth, and they have a nice nature, gentle people, but still they can be demons if they do not recognize the soul and the need of the soul. So Prabhupada continues, he said, throughout the universe, there are only these two types of human beings. Right? You have the godly and the ungodly. So the godly people, they're meant to work. They're meant to work for the pleasure of the Lord. So Prabhupada quotes the Rig Vedas. It says in the Rig Vedas that the godly people, they aim at the lotus feet of the Lord and they act accordingly. Their ways are as illuminated as the path of the sun. So the godly people will behave in the proper manner according to the rules and regulations of Scripture. Intelligent human beings, Prabhupada continues, must remember that the soul obtains a human form after evolving through millions of years in the cycle of birth and death, transmigration. The material world is compared to an ocean, and the human body is compared to a boat. So here Prabhupada's giving a very important example. Everyone should note here this analogy which is given. He said, the material world is compared to an ocean, and the human body is like the boat, right? So the boat has to cross the ocean. And the Vedic scriptures describe that there are teachers who are called acharyas. Acharya is not only a teacher, well, he will set the example for others by his behavior. He will not only behave properly, but he will also teach. So acharyas, they're described here. The acharyas are compared to the boatman, or if you like, the captain of the ship. Sometimes the spiritual teacher is also there. So the Vedic scriptures and the acharyas, or saintly teachers, are compared to expert boatmen. So some people will follow the scriptures, and other people, they will listen to the acharyas, and they will take the message from the acharyas. And in this way they can go on and they can make their own ashram, and they can give shelter to people. So the human body is also mentioned. The human body is compared to the favorable breezes that help the boat to cross the ocean, to reach its destination. So it's a nice example. The material world is the ocean, the human body is the boat, and then the Vedic scriptures and the acharyas are the boatman. And the facilities of the human body, they're compared to the breezes, the good breezes which come off from the ocean, which is just at the side of Dwarka, where Lord Krishna was residing. So the human body is compared to the breezes which help to cross that ocean of material existence. So with all, Prabhupada said, if we have all these facilities, if a human being does not use them for self-realization, then he is very unfortunate. And Prabhupada said he should be considered Atmaha, a killer of the soul. So this is how Prabhupada judges. If you're not willing to use the human body properly in the service of the Lord, to use the facilities like the scriptures and so on, then you're Atmaha, you're like a killer of the soul. So we don't want to do that. So Sri Isopanishad warns in clear terms that killer of the soul is destined to enter into the darkest region of ignorance. So nobody wants to do that. We don't want to go into the darkest region of ignorance. You go into the darkest region of ignorance to suffer perpetually. It means endlessly. So nobody wants that kind of existence. Then Prabhupada continues, he said, there are swine, dogs, camels, asses, etc. So Prabhupada's mentioning different animals. He said, their economic necessities, their economic needs are just as important to them as ours are to us. But the economic problems of these animals are stressed only under nasty and unpleasant conditions. Yeah, we want to transcend. Of course, it's good devotees are able to transcend the material conditions and not to get too much disturbed by the material conditions. Ultimately, we have to depend on Lord Krishna for everything. So Prabhupada said the animals are just as important. The human being has a comfortable life compared to the animals. Why? Because the human life is more important. The human being, he can perform rituals and activities. He can offer, for example, incense, offer the lamp, butter to the Lord. All the facilities are given by the grace of So Prabhupada gives another example here in this purport. He talks about a man. One man is given a better life than that of the animals because he's a human being and he has a greater responsibility. Just like yesterday we gave the example. Oh, I was giving class yesterday, not this class, but we had a class and we were giving the example that the highly placed government worker enjoys better facilities than the ordinary person. And the person who's highly placed, he wants to enjoy, and he likes to come and enjoy with the other workers who are not blessed with his position. So human life is very special. We get facilities, we get nice opportunities for devotional service. But Prabhupada notes, he said, the modern soul, the modern society, Prabhupada calls it a soul-killing civilization, and has only increased the problems of the hungry stomach. So there are many different problems in the world today, and we haven't helped the world. We haven't solved any of the problems of the world by our tiny efforts. We've only increased the problems. People are more hungry than ever. They want prasadam. So Prabhupada talks about polished men. Polished men. When we approach a polished animal, animals, they're simply interested in their sense gratification. And if we're only thinking of sense gratification, then we're no better than them. So the modern soul-killing civilizations only increase the problems of the hungry stomach. Prabhupada gives an example. When we approach a polished animal in the form of a modern civilized man and ask him to take interest in self-realization, he will say that he simply wants to work. He will say that he simply wants to work. And why he wants to work? To satisfy his needs, his stomach. He's concerned for that. He simply wants to work to fill his stomach, and there's no need of self-realization. So this is the ignorance of the modern man. People are so cruel. He's working hard to fill his stomach, but at the same time, he's always threatened with unemployment. Those people who have a job, they're fortunate people. But there are many other people who have no job. They cannot keep a job. There's nothing for them to do. So this is the problem. You have the modern society. It's simply created unemployment. Prabhupada continues speaking more about the value of human life. He said, we're not meant to live like the hogs and dogs, just for sense gratification. If we do not care for self-realization, the laws of nature force us to work very hard. If we don't try for self-realization, we're put under the laws of karma. And the laws of karma force us to work. Force us to work like animals, like hogs and dogs. Prabhupada talks about how people have to pull carts. And then Prabhupada said, some of the regions where the asuras are sent to work are revealed in this mantra. Some of they're described full of darkness and ignorance. So that's a description of some of the places where people have to go to work. So if a man fails to discharge his duties as a human being, then he is forced to transmigrate to the Asura planet, and there take birth in degraded species of life. So that's the result when people don't follow in the Ishavasya spirit. Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that a man who enters upon the path of self-realization but does not complete the process, despite having sincerely tried to realize his relationship with God, is given a chance to appear in a family of Suchi and Srimat. So here comes, this is the question which we were asked just a little while ago. Yuvati Sachi was asking about this situation, how some souls, they enjoy and some souls suffer. So here it is described how a yogi was not successful, so he gets a chance to go on to take birth. He'll take a birth in the material world, and then he can take it. He go on after the mother takes one birth, then the mother will take it. They will they will each do their activities. So Suchi and Sriman, the soul will take birth either in a spiritually advanced family, like a Brahmana, or he will take birth in a good-looking family, a wealthy family. And in this way they can enjoy their material facilities. And Prabhupada talks about, he says that he may take birth in a mercantile family, or a mercantile community. So that's a good birth, but it's the fate of the unsuccessful yogi. Those who were a bit more successful, they would take birth in the family of a devotee. They still have to take birth because they're still not perfect, but they would take birth in the family of someone who is a devotee, and then he can take birth again. So a person who fails to achieve self-realization is given a chance, a better chance in his next life, due to his sincere efforts in this life. If even a fallen candidate is given a chance to take such birth in a respectable and noble family, one can hardly imagine the status of one who has achieved success. By simply attempting to realize God, one is guaranteed birth in a wealthy or aristocratic family. But those who do not ever make an attempt, they don't even make an attempt, what will happen to them? They want to be covered by illusion, and they're too materialistic or too much. They're too materialistic or they're too much in illusion, too much attached. Then what will happen to them? Those who are they're not even making an attempt, they want to be covered by illusion, they're too materialistic, too much attached, then they enter into the darker regions of the universe. The regions where they're confined. They enter into the darkest regions, the lower regions of the universe. So such materialistic asuras make a show of religion, but their ultimate aim is material prosperity. The Bhagavad Gita rebukes such men, calling them Atma Sambhavita, meaning that they are considered great only on the strength of deception and are empowered by the votes of the ignorant. And by their own material wealth. Such asuras, devoid of self-realization and knowledge of Ishavasya, are certain to enter into the darkest region. The conclusion is that as human beings, we are not meant for simply solving economic problems or trying to solve all the problems of the material life into which we are being placed by the laws of nature. We're not meant for solving these problems. We're meant to get out of the material world. All right, so this is the third mantra. This is all on the section of proprietorship. So what happens to people who don't recognize the Lord as the proprietor? Then the wife will take birth again. She may come, and like that, she may come in the womb of the mother, and she can appear just like a goddess. So when Lord Krishna was born, then there was also a goddess who appeared, Goddess Durga. And when Kamsa tried to kill Goddess Durga, she rose up in the air. So Kamsa was shocked, and he had a change of heart at that time. Anyway, understand that there are such things as demons. There are demons, and there are people. There are devas and asuras. The devas cooperate with the plan of the Lord, and the asuras don't. The asuras, they have their own ways. They have their own devices. All right, so that's mantra 3, the killer of the soul. We'll go on to mantra 4. Anijadekam manaso jevyo naina deva apnovam purvamarsat tadyavato nanateti tistat tasminapo matarishva dadadati. All right, translation. Although fixed in his abode, the personality of Godhead is swifter than the mind and can overcome all others running. The powerful demigods cannot approach him. Although in one place, he controls those who supply the air and rain. He supplies everything on the basis of his own authority, that he is the Supreme Lord and he can provide for everyone. So we're given some of the nice qualities here about the Lord. First of all, he's fixed in his abode. He has his own abode. What is his own abode?
Goloka Vrindavan.
What?
Goloka Vrindavan, Maharaj.
Yes, his abode, Goloka Vrindavan, but can also be Vaikuntha, right? He's fixed in his abode. It can be also Svetadvip. It can be where Lord Vishnu resides, the causal ocean. And so Goloka, of course, you can also say the Supreme Lord is there. So then it's described, he's swifter than the mind. How fast the mind can move. So the Lord is swifter than that. Within the mind, it takes a moment, and we can think of the spiritual world, we can think of the causal ocean, we can think of Garbhodakashai Vishnu at the bottom of the universe, right? We can think of these things, but we don't really want to go there. But we hear about them. So the Lord is fixed in his abode, and he can overcome all others running. He doesn't. The Lord can. He doesn't have to take part in any races. He doesn't have to train. But naturally, he can overcome all obstacles. The powerful demigods cannot approach him. Well, he's the Supreme Lord, so even the demigods will have to respect the words of Lord Vishnu. Although in one place he controls those who supply the air and rain, he surpasses all in excellence. So this is the position of the Lord. There are so many demigods. but they're not able to approach him. Just like when Mother Bhumi was concerned about the planet, because there were many demoniac kings on the face of the planet. So Mother Bhumi wanted to remove them. So what did she do? First she went to Lord Brahma and she asked Lord Brahma to help. And Lord Brahma, he then went to the shore of the milk ocean and he meditated on Lord Vishnu. It was all done like that. It was all just done by meditation. So one who knows how to meditate. If you know the art of meditation, you can do these things. You can meditate on the Supreme Lord and He can communicate with you. But to approach Him directly, we're not expected to do that. Even the demigods cannot approach Him. So this verse is giving us practical information about the Supreme Lord. He's being described here. That He can only be known by His devotees. And His devotees can only know Him by His mercy. You need the mercy of the Lord. It's not by our own efforts that we can know Him, but He reveals Himself to the devotees. When He's pleased by the devotees, then He will reveal Himself to the devotee. So the mercy of the Lord is very important. And Prabhupada quotes Brahma Samhita. So that the non-devotee, he can travel at the speed of the mind. He can travel millions of miles, but he cannot approach the lotus feet of Lord Govinda. So Brahma Samhita also describes that the Lord has a transcendental body. And He has, just as His body is transcendental, so the abode of the Lord is also transcendental. And the Lord's abode is Goloka. And we are told the Lord's residence is there at Goloka, and He is enjoying His pastimes eternally there in Goloka. And although the Lord resides in Goloka, He can, by His potencies, He can simultaneously reach every part of the universe. This is an important point to understand, how the Lord can reach every part of the universe, everywhere. There's nothing separate from Him. Prabhupada gives an example from the Vishnu Purana. The Lord's energy are compared to heat and light, just like from a fire, there's heat and light. So although the fire is in one place, the heat and light can be distributed around the area. So similarly, the Lord, although he's in one place, his energies can be distributed everywhere. So Prabhupada then continues to discuss about the Lord's energies. And he said the Lord has many energies, but they are divided. They can be understood that there are three principal energies. And you have the marginal potency, the external potency, and the internal potency. In this way we understand the potency. So the demigods are empowered to control and to administrate natural phenomena. Things like Indra, he's in charge of the rain. And then you have another god, you have the sun god in charge of the rays of the light coming from the sun. And you have other different gods. You have the god of the water, you have the god of the learning, the goddess of learning, you have the goddess of wealth, you have the god of the sea. You have so many different controllers, all different aspects of the material nature, which are all given to us by the Lord. They're all under the control of the different demigods. And the different demigods, they're all under the control of the Supreme Lord. So the material world is the Lord's creation. It's his external potency. And the spiritual world, that is the internal potency. So Prabhupada explains the spiritual world is where the kingdom of God is situated. We want to go to the spiritual world. We want to enter into the kingdom of God first here in this world. And we can adapt ourselves to the kingdom of God in this world, and then we can go on to become qualified to enter into the kingdom of God in the spiritual world. But we have to train up ourselves, we have to prepare ourselves first of all in this life. So the different energies of the Lord are present everywhere. The Lord and his energies are non-different. We should not mistake these energies. We should not mistake these energies for the supreme truth. Nor should we wrongly consider that the Supreme Lord is therefore distributed everywhere. Some people may think like that the Lord has lost his personality because he's taken some form, he's taken some potency. So we may think that so the Lord loses his personality. That cannot be. The Lord has potencies. These potencies are eternal. Of course, potencies can be transformed. They can be transformed. They can be used in different situations. There are different energies present everywhere. but the Lord is the supreme truth. Now, there's the Lord and the Lord's energy. Prabhupada said they're not different, but at the same time they are different. The Supreme Lord is distributed everywhere impersonally. Impersonally, he's there in the form of the Brahma Jyoti. So some people may think that the Lord loses his personal identity and merges into the oneness, but we don't accept that in our path of devotion. People only understand things according to their limited brain substance. Try to understand things with our limited mind and senses, then it will be difficult for us. We have to understand everything on the basis of scripture. So we're warned here in this verse that no one can approach the Lord by his own limited potency. You want to meet with the Lord, you have to qualify, you have to be patient, and you have to wait for the mercy of the Lord. It's not that we can push our way in, as some people do. So then Srila Prabhupada takes up the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, text number 2, where Krishna is speaking about Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam, Pavitram, Idam Uttamam, Prakyakshyavagamam Dharmyam, Susukam Kartam Avyayam. So in that verse, Lord Krishna is describing more about his own personality and the process of devotional service. He says in that verse that not even the great sages and rishis can know him. And so what hope is there of people like the asuras knowing him? Of course, the asuras can also be great devotees. We know Prahlad Maharaj is born in the family of asuras, and then the grandson, Dhruva Maharaj, not Dhruva Loka, but we cannot know the Lord just simply by our own limited senses. We need his own mercy to reveal himself to us. So Prabhupada writes, this fourth mantra of Sri Isopanishad very clearly suggests that the absolute truth is ultimately the absolute person. Otherwise, there would have been no need to mention so many details in support of his personal features. The personal features of the Lord, understanding how the Lord is a person. Of course, we have nowadays people take so many pictures of themselves and of their friends and of their seniors, and people like to take photos. It's going on everywhere. How people become so addicted to having photographs made and taking pictures. So we have to take picture in the mind. Within the mind, we want to have a picture of Lord Krishna. We want to fix our mind on Lord Krishna. And then we can remember him in every situation. So the absolute truth is described here to help us to understand that God is a person, that he is not just simply energy. Certainly he has energy, but at the same time he is a person, and he has a transcendental body. And with his transcendental body, he performs many transcendental activities. And with that same transcendental body, he was there at the battle of Kurukshetra, and before the battle, he spoke the Bhagavad Gita. He spoke the battle of Kurukshetra in the form of Kasa. Okay, the individual parts and parcels of the Lord have all the symptoms of the Lord himself. They have limited sphere of activity and are therefore all limited. So the difference between the Lord and the living entity is described. First of all, what is the point of similarity? That the living entity has all the symptoms of the Lord. Symptoms of the Lord. The different characteristics of the material body are certainly not there in the Lord's body. But the symptoms of the Lord, for example, how the Lord gives pleasure to his devotees, and how he kills the demons, how he deals with the universal affairs. He takes care of any problems, of any breakdown which takes place in the universe, and he will take part in the universe himself. So Krishna comes as a person. And still people will say, ultimately there's no person. You see, conditioned souls, they're thinking that if you're a person, then you cannot be perfect. They cannot understand, they seem to have difficulty to understand that there's a transcendental person with a spiritual body. And with your transcendental body, you can get out the modes of nature. So we have the symptoms. We move, we walk, we talk, we dance, we like to do things. We want to connect all of our activities to Krishna, do things for Krishna, not for our own sense gratification, but for Krishna. Okay, the individual parts and parcels have all the symptoms, but limited spheres of activities. Krishna can do everything with all of his senses. The senses are interchangeable. We can do some things, but we cannot equal Krishna. The parts and parcels are never equal to the whole. They cannot appreciate the Lord's full potency. under the influence of material nature, foolish and ignorant living beings who are but parts and parcels of the Lord try to communicate, try to conjecture about the Lord's transcendental position. They try to understand by their mind the transcendental position of the Lord. So that will be hopeless. You'll never be able to do that with the power of your own mind and senses. So Isopanishad warns us of the futility of trying to establish the identity of the Lord through mental speculation. Don't try to understand Krishna by the power of your own mind and senses. In other words, we have to hear about Krishna from the revealed scriptures. Try to learn of the transcendence from Krishna himself, the knower of the Vedas. The Lord alone has full knowledge of his transcendence. So we want to understand Krishna. The best way to understand about Krishna is by hearing about Krishna from himself. Just like we want to know about someone, they know themselves better. A person knows himself better than other people. We have to hear about Krishna from himself. And therefore, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita. Scriptures are there to guide us, to help us, to understand him. Every part and parcel of the whole is endowed with some particular energy to act according to the Lord's will. When the part and parcel living entity forgets his activities under the Lord's will, then he is considered to be in Maya, illusion. When we forget that we're part and parcel of the Lord, then we're in Maya. So the Isopanishad is warning us to be very careful to play the part given to us by Krishna. This does not mean that the individual soul should not use his own initiative, but we should be careful how you use that initiative. We should use it in the service of the Lord. Because we are part and parcel of the Lord, we must partake. We have the same initiative of the Lord as well. And when a person uses his initiative or active nature with intelligence, understanding that everything is the Lord's potency, then he can revive his original consciousness, which was lost due to association with Maya, the external energy. So the Lord's position is being described in relation to the living entities. The Lord is supreme, and he has his own initiative. He can do anything and everything. However, the living entity, as living entities, we are his parts and parcels. And we can also do things, but whatever we do, it's going to be limited. It's not going to be done with the same kind of intelligence as the Supreme Lord. We have some intelligence, but again, our intelligence will be limited. So we have to appreciate the supreme position of the Lord. Prabhupada concludes his purport by saying, all power is obtained from the Lord. Therefore, each particular power must be utilized to execute the will of the Lord and not otherwise. The Lord can be known by one who has adopted such a submissive service attitude. So Krishna can give unlimited power to living entities that they can do wonderful things. We see, for example, Hanuman in his service to Lord Rama, how Hanuman could jump across the ocean to find out Sita, and how Hanuman could bring the top of the mountain to bring the herbs for to revive Lakshman. Hanuman could do so many incredible services. He was the messenger for Lord Ramachandra, and he was always there to serve Lord Ramachandra whenever there was any problem. He was always eager to take up service. So Hanuman got his power by the grace of the Lord. It all came by the grace of the Lord. So the Lord is known by one who has adopted such submissive service attitude. So that mood of being the servant and willing to do what the Lord wants, that is very important. Just to surrender. Just like Prabhupada got the order from the Lord that he had to go to the West. And Prabhupada knew it was going to be very difficult, but he had to do it. So he did it. The Lord helped him. God helps those who help themselves. If you want to help yourself, surrender to Krishna. Perfect knowledge means knowing the Lord in all his features, knowing his potencies, and knowing how these potencies work by his will. These matters are described in the Bhagavad Gita, the essence of all the Upanishads. So pure knowledge means to know Krishna in all of his features and know about his potencies and how they work. How can we know all of these things? We have to hear. We have to hear the scriptures. The scriptures are there to describe the glories of the Lord. So we have to hear. We have to read ourselves. And in this way we can go on to understand everything by the grace of the Lord. All right, are there any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes?
Maharaj Sridham here. Maharaj, let's say we are devotee, okay, while our leaving the body, okay, whether we have to remember, let's say I'm a Krishna Bhakta example. Sorry, I'm a Narasimha Bhakta. I always praying only Narasimha. My desire more to pray Narasimha example. That means that can consider as a complete Maharaj while you leaving the body, you remember only Narasimha, then you will go to the Goloka Vrindavan, either you will go to the head of our Lord Narasimha Dev. Either Maharaj, is it there's any different Maharaj? Either as a devotee, we should only focus our prayers more to like Radha Krishna deities like that, Maharaj.
Well, Prabhupada, if you know, are you worshipping Radha and Krishna?
No, Maharaj, I am worshipping Jana Badi Subramai and Narasimha deities.
You're worshipping Nrsingadev and who else?
Yes, Maharaj, in the house.
No, but who else beside Nrsingadev?
Jana Badi Subramai.
Ganapati.
No, Jagannath Maharaj, Jagannath Balde Subramai.
Oh, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why, Maharaj, I'm asking whether we as a devotee, our focus should be within, like this is fine, Maharaj. That means we still achieve the Goloka Vrindavan. Either, let's say we pray always Narsingha. Example, our desire more to pray Narsingha. Then what our destiny will be, Maharaj? Whether it's the same benefit we'll get, either different will be slightly whatever.
Well, Lord Nrsingadev, if we're praying more to Lord Nrsingadev, if our consciousness is more towards Nrsingadev,
Yeah.
that's Vaikuntha, right? Lord Nrsingadev, you know, that's not the mood of Goloka. If you want to go to Goloka, we have to cultivate that mood of the Brijbasi people. You know?
Mm-hmm.
It's a special, and well, Rupa Goswami describes also in Nectar of Instruction what you have to do if you want to go to Goloka, you know, Nectar of Instruction said you have to go and live in Vrindavan, and you have to chant the holy name constantly. You know, you have to develop that kind of consciousness. It's very specialized to go to Goloka. But if you don't mind, and you know, Vaikuntha is also the spiritual world, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, going to Goloka, that's a very special thing there. Goloka, the mood of Goloka with the cowherd people and the mood of Vrindavan. But you certainly could go to Vaikuntha worshipping Lord Nrsingadev. And that's also very glorious, you know, that's also the spiritual world. Sometimes worshipping Radha and Krishna, yes, if you worship Radha and Krishna, then of course that's cultivating the mood of Goloka.
Okay. Yeah.
The gopis, they worship Radha and Krishna and they meditate on Radha and Krishna. They remember the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So you can go to worship of Radha and Krishna. That will help you certainly to go to Goloka.
Mm-hmm.
If that's really where you want to go. But if your devotion is more towards Lord Nrsingadev, then you can also go to him. You can go to Vaikuntha. Goloka is the mood of the Brijbasi people. And you have to go and live in Vrindavan. You should, and if you can't go and live in Vrindavan, at least mentally you should live in Vrindavan. You see, within your mind, you should live in Vrindavan. Be thinking always of Vrindavan. It's not always necessary you have to go there. Of course, many of us, we're not able to go there. But within the mind, we can be thinking of Vrindavan. And if within the mind you're thinking of Vrindavan, and you're thinking of Krishna, and you're remembering Krishna's pastimes, then that will certainly help you to get to Goloka. Mm-hmm. You understand?
Yes.
You have any doubt about that? You have any further question?
Oh, Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Yes?
Ask you a question, Maharaj. Maharaj, this is from the previous verse, number 3, where Srila Prabhupada says that we are giving this human form of life, not to work hard like animals. And then some comments are there also that the laws of nature force us also to work very hard, even through we may not want to do so. So I want to know what is actually in terms of working hard or working, the difference between devotees and non-devotees. Because most devotees are from congregation and they also have to work, to have the duties of the family, to work to maintain their family, to eat, to medicine, etc. So, of course, devotees will practice Krishna consciousness and means will work towards self-realization. That is the big difference of devotees. But on terms of working, is actually almost the same with the karmas, or they have any difference in terms of material working or duties?
Yes, well, as devotees, of course you have to work. Yeah, or many of you say, as you say, many of our congregation devotees, they have jobs. They're working to maintain themselves. And you have to work hard. Many people, I know, like computer programmers, they often have to work long hours. They have to sit there for long hours doing their programming. It's not easy. But we should be concerned. We should try to optimize this work, You don't want to just be working all day and all the time, that you have no time for spiritual practice. There has to be some arrangement so that we get the chance, we get some time for association with devotees. If all the time just working, then it's not very good. It's not very good. It's not healthy for our spiritual life. If all the time you're just working, just like sometimes I know one couple, in China, they have 2 children, and the husband's working all day, and he comes home at night. He goes out to work again at night, driving the taxi. It's difficult. It's very difficult because the pressure just to meet the expenses of living in the world, what's required to have a family, to bring up the children. So devotees have to put a lot of energy and work and effort into their work, to keep their jobs and to be successful in their work. A lot of effort is required. It makes it difficult for them to also have a balance with their spiritual life. But still, devotees, somehow they manage. I know some families, they're working hard, and they have their children, and they have their spiritual life also. They do preaching, somehow they manage. They make time, so they're careful not to waste their time. If we see material world, people, they can waste a lot of time. Watch television for hours. They just come home from work and they just watch television all the time, watch movies sometimes for hours. And people they do waste a lot of time. So, but devotees, those people who are devotees, they'll be more cautious to use their time properly, using it for the practical activities, so that they have time, so that they can get some time for the balance, for their other work, for their devotional life, as well as their ordinary work. And of course, devotees also work hard. Some people are full-time devotees, they work hard. It's not easy being a full-time devotee. You know, full-time devotees can also work very hard. And often, brahmacharis, for example, they're not given any salary. They're working hard to keep themselves busy all day, all the time, in the service of Krishna. But that is the work of love. When you work for Krishna, there's real love. People, they take satisfaction in that work. In the material world, people are working, but they don't really, they don't experience that same bliss, that same pleasure which is there in serving Krishna. There's a special pleasure and satisfaction which comes in working for Krishna. You can work for some big company, multinational company, or you can be a teacher, or you can work for the government, and so on. But you don't feel the same kind of pleasure. There's the rasa, the bliss which comes in service to Krishna is not there in any other work. So devotees take great pleasure in working for Krishna.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I have a question, 2 questions. So the first one, we are not at the stage of pure devotion now. And in this mantra, it is described that the Lord has some very interesting qualities. So he is in his abode always. And at the same time, he is faster than other runners. He can move like this. So should we try to understand the contradictory qualities of the Lord, or should we just read and hear about these qualities and without trying to understand them?
Well, of course, you have to first hear about them, and you do have to try to understand them. Otherwise, what's the point of hearing? If you're not understanding, what's the point of hearing about them? Yes, you do want to hear about them, and you want to understand them also. We want to understand according to our limited brain capacity. We try to understand. Just like we hear that Lord Krishna has inconceivable potencies. So how can we understand inconceivable? It's beyond our comprehension. So, well, at least we can understand that he has such powers which cannot be understood by our mind and senses. We cannot understand much of what is inconceivable, but we can understand that. Certainly we can understand that it is inconceivable, that he does have some inconceivable potencies. And then Lord Krishna also says, to those who are constantly devoted, I give the understanding by which they may come to me. Out of compassion, I, dwelling in their heart, destroy the darkness born of ignorance with the lamp of knowledge. So Lord Krishna in the heart acts on us to help us to understand. The more we desire to understand, the more we really desire, then the Lord will give us that understanding. Just like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was meditating on that, the final, on the Gayatri mantra. He was meditating on the Gayatri mantra, how it's 24 and a half syllables. And he could only count 24 syllables. And he was in so much, he was just so anxious to understand what happened to the other half a syllable. Where did it go? And he was meditating, where is the other half of the syllable? He was thinking about it, and he got so desperate, he was ready to give up his life if he could not understand how there was 24 and a half syllables. And at that time, then the Lord revealed to him. The Lord spoke to him and revealed a truth to him, how there was another half a syllable mantra there. So that's one example, how the Lord helps the devotee to understand that Krishna in the heart as a Checha Guru can help you to understand. The other way we try to understand also is with the help of Sadhu, Shastra and Guru. We want to understand things, hear the Shastras more, read again and again, and gradually we'll start to understand. We'll hear from the Shastras, and we associate with the sadhus, with the saintly devotees, and with the Guru, then everything can be revealed. Yes? What is your other question?
Yes, Gurudev, I have found this Prabhupada's quote from the purport to second mantra. So when he realizes the authority of the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva or Krishna, it is to be understood that he has attained the stage of the positive knowledge. And then Prabhupada explained what does it mean, positive knowledge. So I guess that there is negative knowledge also. And would you please explain what does it mean for us, negative knowledge? Is it material knowledge or impersonal knowledge or maybe something else?
Well, positive knowledge would be knowledge about the Lord directly in relation to the Lord, which is pleasing and satisfying to the devotee, to the heart of the devotee. Positive knowledge is given for us in the Bhagavad Gita. That we can understand the Lord with the help of positive knowledge. It's there, this is in text number 4, right? Text number 4, mantra 4.
Gurudev, mantra 2, in the purport of mantra 2.
Oh, mantra 2. Really?
This is the third paragraph.
The third paragraph.
Or third paragraph, in the end of paragraph.
Huh?
In the end of this paragraph.
I don't see it in the third paragraph.
Gurudev, but yes, this one.
Huh?
Yes, this one, this quoting, I mean.
What does the paragraph begin?
The instructions of Sri Isopanishad are more elaborately explained in the book.
Okay, and then where is it mentioned about, again, positive knowledge? Okay, I see it now. Okay, it is to be understood that he has attained the stage of positive knowledge in the purified stage. In the pure positive knowledge. In this purified stage, the modes of nature don't exist. All right? So, we're given some examples. Positive knowledge. He realizes the authority of the absolute of the personality of Godhead. Right? He realizes the authority of the personality of Godhead. In other words, that Krishna is the supreme truth, and everything he is saying is absolute truth. Lord Krishna is the ultimate overseer. He's the controller of everything. He is the authority. Nothing happens without his sanction. So that is positive knowledge. And what is negative knowledge? Well, negative knowledge would be that you don't understand. You think everything is just happening without a controller. It would be like the demonic. The demons think, they think there is no controller, there's no God in charge. That would be negative knowledge. But absolute knowledge is to accept the authority. So negative knowledge is you don't accept the authority. You understand?
Yes, Guru Maharaj, thank you very much. It's clear now. So please accept my obeisances.
Okay. Any other question? Okay, we will stop here tonight. So we'll go on next class, mantra number 5. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Thank
you, Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.